Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome. This is the weekly Jargon. I'm Abel Perez.
Jose Rodriguez.
Rohi Zachariah.
And fellas, congratulations. Another successful year at the fairgrounds. I want to thank you guys. I enjoyed the show from D and Austin and Lincoln. So over by Washington School, and I can see it nice and bright. The whole sky was lit up. So you guys want to share a little bit about the experience there?
Well, let the man with the plan kind of get us started. I think, a lot of it really fell on Rohi putting this thing together. And I thought it was a very successful event. Again, this is our second year. Fingers crossed that we can continue this because I think it brings the community together to one place. Although hot, people still want to come out with their families, being that it's a free event. If you're looking at us on Facebook and you're finding out for the first time that we hold this 4th of July spectacular event, make sure you put it on your calendar for next year. But Rohi, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously the motivation behind it was to keep a community event that I think everybody wanted, keep it alive and going, but also centralize it. Because again, traditionally being at the golf course, while a beautiful course, it does kind of put it on the outskirts of the city. By doing it here, everybody can enjoy it, whether you want to sit at home and have your barbecue or you want to come out and fight the 120 degree heat that was, but there was a huge showing. I mean, definitely a lot of people came out, ate a lot because all, food vendors were there. And just, you got to see a lot of things like that you wouldn't expect. I mean, people just coming out, sitting on the grass and just hanging out with family, and that was kind of really the motivation behind it. It's not a drunk fest. It's not this huge festival. It's just come out with your family and just be together. So.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to ask you, Rohi. For those who haven't shown up, what can they expect while they're there? What's the experience like?
I mean, so we have a carnival area for the kids. It's all free. Obviously, there's a lot of arts and crafts vendors, tons of food and drink vendors. Yeah. So it should cater to everybody's needs. And again, our hope is just to keep it free. I mean, it's not that we're trying to make this into a huge, financial burden for somebody. I think this year especially, we heard a lot of people who, to go and buy those fireworks at those stands, $100, $200. Right. Which unfortunately with California doesn't get you much of anything but a sparkler. Right. It's nice that they can just maybe come spend that much money, get some food and drink, and see some real fireworks.
And the other bigger thing is that you do hear the illicit fireworks going on, right? And there is a lot of calls for service throughout that time. Being in the city council, you hear this from your PD, and they're having to go out there to take care of these service calls. Yeah. Some are fires, because a lot of the fallout does land in certain dry areas and could potentially start up a fire. Mm-hmm. So like you said, it's during this inflationary, I mean, even though you're getting a blast of fireworks, you can get the sparklers or these $200 packets that, kind of give you that patriot type of spirit, right? Yeah. But here you have it here. Bring your family, bring your launchers, and you can get that done. The other component to that, of course, is, just having all these illicit fireworks go off. It really scares a lot of the pets. People have complained about pets, and that's true. If you're a pet lover, I mean, obviously that's a nightmare for your dog or cat or whatever their pet you may have. So I think having it in this location, the centralized location, brings, it's got capacity to really bring in a lot of people. And yes, it was hot. It was hot. And I think you saw a line out the door after 7 because now it's cooling down and people want to come in. Mm-hmm. But it provides everything that Rohi said. It provides not only a venue for you to sit down with your family, food. It caters to, activities, train rides. You know, and we're trying to make it bigger. So if you're looking at this for the first time and you want to be a vendor, reach out to us. We have a site on our Facebook also, and you can reach out to Rohi. But more importantly, you attended the golf tournament for this event. And although they're two separate venues, they're still connected in spirit, right? Because the city still holds the golf tournament, which we all participated in. And then in the afternoons, this was the big event. Yeah. They raised the funds to do this. But I think with budgetary issues, we were missing the 4th of July every other year or 2 years in a row. And I think, when Rohi brought it up, why don't we do it as a service community, a service member trying to bring this together, right? And we got a hold of not only the Greater Madera Kiwanis, which is your primary host, you have the Evening Lions, you have the Rotarians, the Noon Rotary, and you've had other partners that come along, the City of Madera, the county. So it's been a good partnership so far. And I would be remiss not to mention the people that really make it happen, and that's our sponsors.
Yeah.
Now, in the golf, you're going to have sponsors for the golf, but for this event, it requires some money. So, again, I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Mid Valley Disposal. Thank you to Fagundes Farms, Lynx Ranch. We had Embark Madera that came out this year. We had Span Construction. We had the City of Madera, the County of Madera. We also had Sax Guns. Thank you so much for a lot of security. That takes a lot of effort and a lot of security. Caglia Environmental. We had Richard Spencer. So if you're hearing these names and you know these people, please make sure to go out there and thank them for us, because without them we can't make this happen.
Yeah.
So if I missed anyone, Rohi, please feel free to.
PG&E got
PG&E came through at the end. That was a great sponsorship, and it helps us.
I'll say a small town like this, everybody always wants everything, right? Why don't we do this? Hanford does this, Clovis does this, and why doesn't the city do this? And to Jose's point, it's awfully expensive, right? When you are pulling your staffed employees from city or county, and you're asking them to come on a holiday, and you're asking them to work essentially all day. You got your golf tournament that started at 8 a.m., so you got to be there by 6 a.m., all the way till midnight. Show starts at 9 p.m., they got to be there till 11 p.m., right? So it just becomes awfully expensive. And so anytime we want to see initiatives occur, almost the best way of action is moving it to almost like the private sector, right? And taking it upon yourself. And that's kind of the kudos you're giving Rohi, and thank you, Rohi, for spearheading that, because we all know when we volunteer, we say we service clubs, it takes a lot of time. Yeah. And it's a lot of effort, and it typically always falls back on that one individual who had the bright idea, right? And so but because you have those individuals, and I know you had a pretty awesome committee that was rallying behind you, and a lot of alliances that were pulling these sponsors. Boom, there you go. You're able to bring it together, right? And so now, thankfully, Madera, here we go. We have consistently now this fireworks show. Yeah. And I'll tell you, man, that golf tournament, perfect. I was, last 2-3 holes, I was dying. It was already noontime, and I was like, I'm ready to get out of here. But it was I was home by 1 o'clock. I had lunch, I was fed, took a shower, rested. And I try to not go out or leave the house as long as possible, right? I showed up to the barbecue that I was going to at 7. It was still pretty hot, by the way. But I think that because of that experience, just being part of the valley, right, and the valley heat, I think it's it's not far-fetched to say, hey, I'm going to stay home, have a nice meal with my family inside in the AC. Yeah. And then let's head out to the fairgrounds right around 8:30, get a good spot and watch an amazing fireworks show. Yeah. And 25 minutes, on paper probably doesn't sound like much, but was it 20 or 25 minutes?
It was a little over 20. I know, I was trying to keep track. Yeah.
But when you're watching, I mean, that's a long time. Yeah. That's a lot of boom, bang, and flash, right? So pretty cool stuff. I think I certainly commend all who were involved in that. So good job, fellas. Yeah. And again, we just snowballed that, and next year it'll be funner.
Now, and I'll ask Rohi. Rohi is there early morning, the day before, and early morning the day after. Just trying to make sure that everything's gathered. But what could we do better to try to make this and enhance this for the public? I mean, sure. What would you say would I mean, because you've seen it for 2 years now, and we try to do it for a third year. But what do you think we would need to enhance this?
I think that's always been the ongoing battle in my head. Is obviously it's 5. We open at 5. Who's going to come at 110? But it's like you said. I mean, we've working with the fairgrounds. I mean, we've had a really good relationship with them over the years. Not with just that, but obviously with the involvement we have with the fair itself. And we come up with crazy ideas. But at the end of the day, it's what's going to work. You know, is it bringing out a Ferris wheel? Is it after this one they were talking about like should we have like a car like drive-in almost, like let people park on the grass in their cars. And, you know, we're always trying to come up with these crazy ideas to incentivize people just to come out. You know, Jose mentioned you know talking about like water games and things like that, and I'm all for it. I would love it, but again, with every idea comes another headache and something else you got to manage. You know, so that's always where we're balancing out. Like, you know, is the return going to be there? And again, as long as everybody's happy, then I'm for it. And that's always kind of been that thing at the end of the day. The vendors were happy. The people were happy. Everybody, you know, was all for it, and they still want it. So, you know, it's just, you know, having the community give back and just say, hey, you know.
Yeah, you know, and if you're out there and you either you showed up and you had some ideas, or you feel like, you know, things could, you know, be improved, or hey, you had such a good time, you just can't wait to be part of that, or you want to put your name on that, reach out to Rohi or Jose here with the Greater Kiwanis here and attend one of their meetings and see how you can get involved with that. But there's I can tell you, and you guys will confirm, there's certainly a lot of opportunity for volunteers, right? So,
definitely. There's always room for that. And one thing that I will say is that as much as you want to enjoy that 4th of July, you know, obviously I had an opportunity to go out there and play golf with you. So I enjoyed that piece of it because my family was there. But Rohi doesn't really get to enjoy it. But
I enjoyed it.
The gratitude, no, this is what I'm saying, is the gratitude at the end.
Yeah.
I think that puts a smile on his face that we're able to provide something for the community. Because a lot of times, these things are thankless. They go, you know, and we're not looking for appreciation or thank you very much. But it's just that the fact that if somebody like us, like look at our age group, is not carrying the torch, who then?
Yeah.
Who then will?
And that's a perfect segue to acknowledge Mr. Rohi here as for around 40, named for around 40 for top 4 around 40 in Madera by the Madera Chamber of Commerce. So he will be at the Lifetime Achievement Dinner, being recognized as a top 4 around 40.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
It used to be 4 under 40, but they were like, oh, we need to go around 40.
Yeah.
I don't think you make the cutoff to be around 40.
That's right.
I think you're a little too far. Too far up.
I am. I'm closer to around 50.
You're getting that lifetime achievement. That's
you're working for lifetime. But congratulations to that Rohi.
Thank you.
And I've always saw that award as, you know, kind of like a kind of like that checkpoint, right? Like, hey, you're on track. You know, like we acknowledge it. And I've always kind of had a problem with like some of the Lifetime Achievement Awards. I mean, they're so old when they're finally being recognized. And it's like, man, like, you know, that's a long time. And some of these people they've passed away and somebody else is receiving their award. But, you know, to be essentially in your prime and still in the thick of things, and then, you know, being able to get that affirmation, I think is pretty solid. So congratulations, well deserved.
There you go. See, Roy, there was a whole segment just about you, buddy. There you go.
Don't ever say we want it. Go ahead and bring in the flowers and the banda. We have a celebration for you. Yeah, so awesome. Well, congratulations, guys. The 4th of July, I think that's a hit. Drop some comments. Let us know your guys' thoughts on that. And on the other side of it, you know, 4th of July being a very, you know, fun and, you know, everything. There were other aerial shows throughout the city. And I think Madera has been pretty consistent with those shows, right? And those are the illegal fireworks.
Undocumented.
Undocumented.
Quite a bit.
You know, my issue, so, like, I'm not a neighborhood snitch. I'm not, you know, hey, somebody's firing fireworks. But geez, 2 weeks before 4th of July, and now even to you know, last night, still firing fireworks. It's like, how many do you have? Like, and at what point is it just like not fun anymore? I guess it's I've never had that like relationship with fireworks where I'm like, I need to blow something up. But there seems to be quite a bit of people who feel differently, and they're still sparking them and letting them fly.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting a little bit of PTSD, you know, watching TV. Oh shoot, what is that?
You know, and I think that at least at a younger age for us, is that anything that's restricted, you're always curious to see what what does it
my
feel like
business.
to bend that rule? Like, what does that feel like? And again, the experimentation of having this M1000 go off and just say, God darn, that thing was badass. Let's do it again, right?
And I enjoy the badass for like a few times, you know, like, but man, too much badass.
Yeah.
There's too many days of badassery going around.
Yeah, and you'll hear this, like you
Coin
said,
that word
leading
there.
up to the 4th of July and after the 4th of July, you'll hear the illicit fireworks just going up and down. And, you know, I guess I can't enjoy that Patriot box that they sell at these fireworks stands anymore because I think it goes up to about maybe 12 feet. And that's it.
Yeah.
Any higher than that, that's it. And little whistles. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's people that love that for kids, which is great. But I think certain people have gotten beyond that. They want to see something more spectacular. And again, this is why we have that venue. Yeah. So you just need to get over the idea that, hey, you can have it there at no cost to you. And if you're paying $200, $300, $500 to try to get these and then risking yourself getting a citation if not arrested for illicit fireworks.
Or risking your fingers.
Yeah.
You see all these videos of people just getting blown.
We're doing that for you. We got you covered. Come on out and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Now, being that it was the 4th of July, obviously you always want to think that it's all fine and dandy, but with that comes, you know, the fires and what have you. And then throughout that weekend, you also experience other issues that arise, right,
Yeah.
Abel? I mean, and we heard this on the news, and unfortunately, you know, there was some lives lost, and not necessarily due to 4th of July, but we're segueing out to a different issue that, you know, just kind of relates to the impacts of the celebration, right? And
yeah, you know, we're all fathers, obviously, and we all have children who are near or around 13, and unfortunately, there was a 13-year-old who lost his life to a very senseless act of violence, and you know, where I think the specifics on, you know, what occurred are still being investigated and yet to really be released. But we want to offer our condolences to the family of that lost life. And, you know, I think even, you know, on the other side, you know, whoever did that, I mean, those senseless acts also lead to essentially a lost life there, you know, life in prison. And, you know, that individual's family also essentially lost somebody, right? And so there's all these people that are affected by this senseless act. And when you're a tight-knit community like Madera still is, it's very likely to know those families that were impacted by that. And so, you know, from my understanding, there's still a 15-year-old that's fighting for their life in the hospital. And so our prayers go out to that individual as well. You know, but, you know, I think, you know, we're always talking about parenting and fathering, you know, our children, and, you know, we have our sons, and, you know, they think they know everything, and it's like, oh, your rules, and, oh, let me do this, and I know what I'm doing, and, you know, and it's this like this balance between like what we know and what we've experienced, and then trying to give a little bit of leeway and let them have a little bit of freedoms. And I think for any parent out there, anybody, chime in if you feel free to chime in. But I'm sure you could relate. It's like we're scared senseless to let our kids go, you know, throw the trash sometimes, and we shouldn't have to feel that way, you know. But the brute and ugly reality of life is that these things can occur, right? And so it brings up the conversation of public safety, you know, personal safety. You know, obviously Rohi being a gun store owner, you know, very pro gun and self defense and things of that nature. And again, this situation that occurred was, you know, obviously amongst minors, seemingly. And so, you know, it's just, yeah, I feel for it. And I couldn't imagine going through that type of loss in that type of circumstance. So.
And that's, you know, I mean, and that's part of, you know, I know we're all part of service clubs. I mean, that's why we do have kid components to it, because, again, kids want to stay busy. I mean, especially now, summer's out, you know, they don't have much to do. They're just, you know, if you don't keep them busy they're going to get into trouble. They're going to find something to do. I know on the security side of it, you know, we always see an uptick of just things going on. It's mischief, you know. I mean, it's kids getting them into little bits of trouble because, again, maybe they're staying the night at their friend's house, you know, during the week. You know, mom and dad's at work, so that they're going to get themselves into some kind of trouble just that way.
Yeah.
I mean, we just went to a call yesterday, kids, knocking on doors in the middle of the day, so we had to go out there and check on things. I mean, it's just, but that's why, like, 4th of July, that's why we do it. I mean, there was huge youth groups that came out and were a part of it. And it's just to keep them busy. I mean, it's to show kids, like, there's more to life than, you may be thinking or what your friends are telling you,
Right.
And it's sad to say that that happened. I mean, you never want to hear or see that kind of stuff in our town, especially. But you got to keep kids busy. You got to give them something to do.
And this was what we do know is they were at a quinceañera, and it was a house at a house. It wasn't at a venue, and by no means are we insinuating that the kids shouldn't have been there. You shouldn't have to worry about going to a party and being a victim. So we're more so speaking on the perpetrator, right, versus the victim. But it is scary, and you do have a security business, and security guards are expensive, right? It is pricey. We've recently had a few parties, and it's around $1,000 at least, for an evening party or a quinceañera type party.
Yeah.
But at a hall, it's required. And why? Well, you know better, but from my understanding, you have to have one guy in the parking lot, a couple at the doors, one inside, and there's all these rules, and they might seem super like petty and like annoying and frustrating, and you're having to whip out your wallet because of it. But here's an example of how proper security could really mean the difference between life and death, right? I remember having a conversation with my son, and I said, he was talking about all the fights that were occurring at TJ on campus, and I said, if you're ever going to fight, or if these kids that are fighting, the best place to fight is on campus, right? Because that security guard is going to get there pretty quick, or somebody's going to get there quick to stop it. Sometimes people drift off. They want, let's go to the cemetery and fight, or in the park and fight. There's no supervision out there, right? And so there's nobody there to intervene and maybe prevent death, right?
Yeah.
So here's kind of an example of the difference. You might save money having a party at your residence, but when you have that many people, and let's face it, especially if it's your kid's party, you don't know who they're associated with or what those kids are about or who they're trying to be, and and you have that mixture in your house, you're setting yourself up for some major liability there, right?
Yeah.
So the extra cost there might be worth it.
Something to consider for sure. And I just want to do the same thing and send out our condolences, not only for the family of the lost victim, but also the kid that's fighting for his life. The other sympathy is for the family of that perpetrator, because it's really it's an impact on them as well. It's a huge impact, and it impacts the community, especially around that area, because one day you see this person, you look at that person, you say, man, that kid was such a good kid. How did this come about, right? And you start questioning that, and obviously we're not here to analyze and break that down.
Yeah.
Just more so to show our condolences for the families and to really sympathize of what's taking place within that community, because it affects not only our perception but people outside of Madera. Oh, that's why I don't like Madera. That's why you get all this stuff. It happens everywhere, by the way.
Yeah.
These types of acts happen in many different places. Violence, and one can really try to go to the root of the cause of that. And that we can spend a whole show, maybe a whole week talking about that. That's not the case here. It's more so about, shoot, man, we all have kids within that same range.
Yeah.
And I look at your kid, for example, 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And, just to fathom the idea of that kid being involved in something like that, or your kid, that's 14, my kid's 16, and having to just think of, how I would react as a father. Yes, I mean, obviously a violent act like that certainly perpetrates violent desires also. I can only imagine the family, because you give life to this kid, and you spend all your life trying to teach this kid the good things in life. And unfortunately, they fall victim to something like that. Yeah. And it really, really hurts me to just think about it, because we all have kids within that range.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. I mean, you got to look at it from both sides of the spectrum. And for me, I mean, we don't know who did this. We don't know if it was an adult, a kid. We don't know what type of person it was. But when you take it back to your shoes, imagine getting that call. You don't want to get that call that your son's a victim, but you also definitely don't want to get the call that your son was the perpetrator. You know, and he didn't have he was influenced to back up his buddy, and he grabbed a weapon and essentially killed somebody. I mean, those are both scary, very scary situations to find yourself in. And I think as a parent, I mean, those are your worst nightmare situations, and you do your best to communicate and try to give these life lessons, but ultimately, they're once they become of that adolescent age at 13, I think they call it adolescence because they're free to do as they want, right? And kids are typically making dumb choices, where they're going to go out and hurt somebody. But she's just, yeah. So we just certainly wanted to give our condolences to the family who lost life and the ones who are still fighting for theirs. And we hope justice is served and this investigation can come to an end with all who are involved held accountable. I think that.
Yeah, and I know that you hear it all the time. The healing process isn't something that happens overnight. Yeah. Sometimes it never really heals because you've lost an attachment to your family. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially the core unit of your family, and that's why the condolences go out. But it's hard because you're not the victim's family. You just can feel for that. Assuming that it was your kid, you can only kind of, it's hard to wrap your head around that. But either way, I mean, obviously this goes around not only in this weekly jargon, but it goes around in other social media platforms, right? And I think people want to be able to give their opinion and want to be able to say, chime in, and it's all great. It's all great. I mean, I can't really say much because we don't have all the details, but it's we have a 4th of July, great fireworks spectacular, and then soon after you hear something else of that nature that really just kind of, it brings it down a bit, and we don't want to just provide you all the good stuff. This is happening now, and it's in not only the papers, but you hear it in the social media reels. People are out there talking about it. Feel free, to chime in. What you think.
And actually, you bring up a good point with the media and the news, and we're gonna segue into a social media page that's actually been pretty popular, right? So Madera Uncensored, right? And whether we're no way affiliated with Madera Uncensored, but they are a page that is public, and they're a page that a lot of people are starting to lean to for information or for things that are going on in Madera. And traditionally they've posted car accidents or buildings on fire and things like that. But it is interesting because unless it's a huge thing, right? A huge event that occurs, then you get ABC kind of coming in and they'll do a quick little segment on it. But there's a lot going on kind of behind the scenes, and it seems like people are really gravitating to that information. Madera Uncensored really just throwing things out there, and they're serving the public in a different sector, right? They're not saying, hey, we're a formal news outlet and we stand by our what we put out there. No, it's as stuff's being presented to them, they just throw it out there, right? And so it's very, some of the stuff can be very raw, some of the clips can be a little bit explicit, but again, it's realities of what's kind of occurring. And that's actually how I found out a kid was stabbed that night. They had posted something, hey, we don't have much details, but we know that this had happened. And, and then, shortly after, then you start seeing, other posts about it. But, that's, it's definitely, it kind of opens the question, does Madera have the appetite for a new news outlet or news, media outlet that is a little bit quicker, a little bit more in the trenches, if you would, right? I know we have our Madera Tribune, and they do a good job of covering a lot of like Jose, with the golden shovel and wearing the hard hat, breaking ground.
And,
Little League and Rohi getting the 4-round 40 award. No, but they're highlighting the bigger stories, which is an absolute need for any city. because those are our milestones. That's showing our growth. That's showing other outsiders, hey, Madeira is making moves. So we certainly need that, right? But there seems to be this other appetite for like the raw, uncut, give it to me how it is, on the streets, live on the streets, and in kind of behind the scenes, And I have a cousin in law enforcement. And one time I had told him 10, 15 years ago, oh yeah, Madeira's pretty calm. It's not that bad. And he goes, it is if you're not part of it, right? He goes, if you're not part of the drugs and gangs and all that kind of stuff, then you don't see it, fortunately, right? But when you're especially a police officer who sees it every day, you realize how much it actually exists, and it's not just unique. That's not just Madeira; it's every city, And so,
and you know what? You brought up a good point, because I think it's happening now nationwide, where you see the bans on TikTok, because a lot of the content could be uncensored, and you're not necessarily tailoring that to what you want people to see. Like certain media, if you're at NBC or CBS or any of these big major media outlets, you got to be careful with what you say, right? You can't just go out there and say something without having repercussions.
Yeah.
Or in the world of what you see in TikTok now, it seems like there's a lot of exposure of a lot of different. I mean, there's a lot of media out there. I don't know. I mean, you can grab onto something one day and say, "Oh shit, this is the way things work," and then move on to something different. I mean, they throw so much stuff out there. I don't know if they do it intentionally in a way, but it's out there. It's very raw sometimes, and I mean, obviously that could affect the way you control people. It could affect the way you shape people's thoughts, because you're no longer really censoring what content goes out.
Yeah.
Now all this is just raw. And to your point, when you have this media outlet wanting to expose the raw things that took place in Madeira, well, I mean, again, there's an appetite for it. People want to see that, and I don't see what the problem with that is. Obviously, you're going to see some more graphic stuff that you wouldn't see through like ABC 30 or CBS 47 or something like that. And maybe because they're, like you said, they're at the trenches. They're recording live, and even when war took place, if you guys remember, no one was out there recording the guts of a soldier coming out or anything like that. But
not until Vietnam.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why.
And that when you started seeing that, then you started seeing a lot of these young students starting to say, "Hey, man, why
we
are
ain't
we
going?
Yeah.
We're not going, right?" And I know it's an impact for people, but again, it shapes the way people think, because you're no longer watching with this closed-end deal. You're watching the raw effects.
But again, I follow the pages like Abel's talking about. I think what you have to realize is that what they're doing is it's photojournalism. But it is unbiased in a sense. I mean, they're not left or right.
Right.
There's no agenda there. But at the same time, it's almost like it reminds me of when what was the crime shows that would come on television.
Cops?
America's Most Wanted, right? They got in trouble because they kept showing certain ethnicities being arrested over others, and what it did, it drew conclusions that certain ethnicities were more likely to be arrested than others, when that was not a fact. And I think that's kind of the problem with the Madeira Uncensored, is 99% of what they post is all the bad stuff. Car accidents and the shootings and all these things, and you go like every time I see a wreck on their page, it's always the same thing. Man, Madeira doesn't know how to drive and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And you go and you start getting that mentality, like, yeah, man, Madeira doesn't know how to drive.
Yeah.
But they don't do what they don't do is that journalistic side says, well, we also need to show the other side. There's no good news. They're not posting like here was this statue that went in, or here was this new thing that's opening. It's like, it's all bad.
But you see, and that's the thing, is that the appetite. What is it about our human nature that we like to see? Look,
I know, but they want to see it. But I'm just saying, if they're listening, they have to also do the due diligence to understand that they do have a journalistic mentality. They have to highlight Madeira, not Madeira's worst. Highlights. You do have to put some good in there to show like Madeira's not a terrible place, because I'm sitting there and I pop up and I go, oh, Madeira, oh my God, I don't want to move there.
Yeah, but I mean, it goes back to, I mean, why is it that we showcase so many like these negative, of what's taking place, not necessarily in Madeira, but in our newsrooms, right? Why is it We're showing.
It's just human nature. We want to see it. I get that. But
again, then I mean, somebody.
But the news still shows. They still have those fluff pieces about.
Of course.
Timmy got his new first piece of candy. And
and that's good. I mean, it's funny how you can go from you start seeing the news and they start unveiling all these great things that took place, and all of a sudden, oh, by the way, there is a homicide shooting coming on here, such and such and such, and all of a sudden, it's just like, whoa, and then you see the news and you see the pictures of the perpetrators, and all of a sudden it starts shaping the way you think. Oh, wow, is it that? Could it be that mainly this ethnicity or these people? Yeah. But one thing that I never see is how money, and I'm talking about corporate crime, does not get exposed more. But yet, we have it happen every single day by the millions. Yeah. People affected by the millions. But yet, no one's out there really focusing on that journalism and saying, hey, there is, by the way, but it's not as bad as it is here. Yeah. If we can go uncensored on that, on this whole,
but then you're just conspiracy.
Well, not necessarily, because people are being affected in many different ways.
Because you can't show the wreck.
Those are all of a sudden you start exposing white collar crimes, and now your Facebook gets deleted.
Yeah, exactly.
Instagram gets cut off because there is censorship right there, right? So,
correct.
So yeah, that is an interesting.
And I think those kind of because you want to see at both ends of it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're looking at the lower side of a lot of the violence that takes place in these sectors of the community, and I'm not speaking for Madera in general. I'm talking in general for a lot of the way news are reported, right? They're always looking for the bad things. These are your criminals. Yeah. These are the people. But I mean, there is a reason why. Could it be that maybe it's because of poverty? Mm-hmm. Could it be they're boxed in certain social economic disadvantages? And I mean, we can get political, but I mean, you're not really going deep into that to really uncover. But yet up here, there's just a lot more things going on that we never really. And that's why when I see TikTok, sometimes, you get to see a glimpse of what really is taking place in these other white-collar corporate crimes that nobody's unveiling. Nobody's like, well, look, who's behind it? Yeah. Look at the pictures of the people that are behind it.
Yeah, I think, obviously if we scrutinize a page like Madera Uncensored as people who are doing that like that, we would say, oh, okay, well, that's good that they're doing this. We could probably, do this and throw some of that stuff, use that influence. But I think ultimately I value who they decide to be, who they decided to be, which I think their name says it all, Madera Uncensored. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not Madera, beautiful Madera, or Madera as a whole, or anything like that, or the community of Madera. It's just Madera Uncensored. When you come here, things are going to be uncensored. We're going to tell you, we're going to tell it like it is, like as the information exists, and here it is. And I think sometimes because politics can, have us pushing a different narrative or trying to put spins on things, it's nice to kind of, and refreshing to kind of get that uncut version sometimes, or uncensored version. And the comments too, if you're any type of, if you're anybody who wants to kind of understand the will of the people, or the thought of some of these people, go to the comments, and you see some interesting conversations in there. Sometimes boneheaded, because you get the trolls on there and they're saying random stuff, but there's threads within that thread of people having real conversations.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of data to be extracted from there that could help, somebody like a city councilman or. Yeah.
No, I mean, and that's good, because you get to hear from your constituency, like what's really taking place. Yeah. And, I mean, we have a platform of where you can do that, and that's always your public comment. We'd love to hear anyone that's looking to see that there's issues in there to come by and let us know, because you are essentially the eyes and ears of your neighborhood. Yeah. I mean, we're not there all the time. I'm not there all the time. But if you reach out to me and say, hey, I'm having these issues out here, why? Well, I mean, it's a good opportunity for you to let not only me know, but the rest of your elected officials and your city know what's taking place. In this way, we take then a direction to make policy, hopefully, to try to alleviate some of those concerns. Mm-hmm. And I know there's going to be concerns everywhere. We can't fix everybody's problem, because there's thousands of problems, not more. But I mean, our essential duty is to make sure that we provide the services that are essential to the community, right? And from water, fire, police, safety, all these things that are essential to a community, a government, a city government, to take care of its people and its residents. That's what we do. And nobody's perfect, right? So we're always trying to improve, and we couldn't ask for a better place to do it than a public comment. So I know we're running on time, but any last thoughts that want to add?
Some last thoughts. I mean, I think we've kind of rounded about. So today we talked about community. Started off with the fireworks spectacular show that was put on here, and so we talked about that. We talked about obviously the violence and social media and stuff, and how it's affecting our community. But I think ultimately, as we pull all that in, it's the community involvement that's required, right?
Yeah.
If you want good to happen, you want to bring a great fireworks show and have you got to take initiative, assemble a committee together and get people to rally behind that idea. You're probably going to have to, give some blood, sweat, and tears, and Rohi will attest to that. But again, the fruits of your labor are all that worth it, right?
Definitely.
Now, if you take that same mentality and you apply it to, a Crime Stopper or a Neighborhood Watch, I mean, we've seen those type of programs be very successful with mitigating crime, with alleviating some of those, just some of those neighborhoods that have had, a high volume of issues, right? And even areas that haven't had a high volume of issues, those neighborhood watch type environments have created a lasting, safe community. But it all stems from individuals willing to give up a little bit of their time, give up some energy, and of course, a little bit of love to put into seeing that come through. So if you're interested in learning how you can, start on any of those type of programs, reach out to us. We can certainly guide you in the right direction and assist you with either getting involved with something that you like out there and you want to be part of, or something that you don't like and you would like to see resolved. Maybe we could put some plans to action.
Yeah, definitely.
So, gentlemen.
All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to ahead and say goodbye on this segment, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you next week.
This is the Weekly Jargon. Like, subscribe, and of course share. And